like to introduce our panel this morning. We have Connie Felder. She is the Deputy Director of Rochester Works. And we have Rosa Smith Montanaro over here, and she is the placement specialist for Rochester Works. And then we have, Tolbert Carter. She is a manager over at Rochester Works Career Center. And then leading our panel this morning will be Christina Banquets, and she's the Business Services Coordinator for Rochester Works. So we'll let them get started.
Thanks everybody for coming this morning. What I thought we would do is to kind of just start out with a short PowerPoint presentation talking about how this whole idea originated and how we got to where we are today. Rochester Works, will give you an overview of Rochester Works first, just in case you're not familiar with us. We're a nonprofit organization. We operate actually three one-stop career centers in coordination with Department of Labor, one of them being actually within the Department of Human Services, and we're right here in Rochester. That's the name. We have 51 full-time staff, 39 of them provide direct services to job seekers in business, and we served over 25,000 job seekers next year. Snapshot of 2008, because that's pretty much when all of this started to occur. We had a recession in federal funds. Because of that, we had a reduction in staff. Obviously a very difficult time to watch our co-workers have to leave the organization. In addition to that, for those of us that were still employed, lucky enough to still be employed, we had a salary freeze and obviously fewer resources, but to serve an increasing number of individuals. So the staff response, employees were obviously concerned about job security. We all were. Staff morale was low. There was a suggestion in our suggestion box that indicated the need to improve management-staff relations. That was probably one of the biggest catalysts that I remember. That we kind of knew we had to do something, but then looking at that and having it come directly from staff like that is what started to kind of kick this whole thing off. On a positive note, retention and attendance were stable. So it seemed like people still did want to be there. They just wanted to have a better place to come. The vision for staff was to have Rochester Works be as great a place to work as the work we do. We have a really strong focus, as most of your organizations do, on customer service. Our customers come first, and their response back to us when we're surveying them was always positive. Well, we wanted that to be the same experience for staff. We wanted to implement a process that enhances the work environment while improving performance of all staff. And obviously to create a greater sense of community. So for everybody to feel good about coming to work, feel good about the people that they work with and the work that they do. Another thing that started that kind of led this is the principle of gung-ho. Is anybody familiar with that? Anybody read that? No? Ken Blanchard's Gung-Ho is a book that I think the whole management staff read that. But basically, they talk about increasing productivity and the quality of our services, but also at the same time increasing morale and turning on the people in your organization. So again, making them want to be there, making them excited about coming to work every day and excited about the work that they do. This is more information about the Gung-Ho principles. If anybody has an interest in this, I would suggest picking up the book. It's available pretty much everywhere. It's a short read, which is why I read it. But it was interesting, and they have some really different. Oh, thank you. Some great ways of thinking about things, making not just your organization, the world that we live in, a better place. But then he takes it all the way down on how you can take that and implement it within your workforce. The next step in this is we did what could be really dangerous to do. We did an employee survey. And And I say it's dangerous, and Connie will get into that more, but because once we have that information, what do we do with it? And that's what the panelists will get into. But, you know, it's kind of scary to put yourself out there like that, to say not only what's right and what's great, but where are our areas of improvement. But we did it anyways, committed to the fact that we would do something with the results. We weren't 100% sure what yet, but we would do something. And this survey, we brought in a professional from the outside to create and analyze and look at the survey, so it was completely anonymous, so people could feel comfortable really being honest, and also valid in that she had experience in doing that, and she's a trained professional in doing these types of surveys. The 3 areas that management chose to focus on are these last 2: respect and acknowledgement, trust, and collaboration. And those are the areas, they all go together. Yes, they were the 3 lowest areas. That's why we wanted to focus on them, but they go together, and they do touch the top couple too. If there's greater trust, obviously you're going to have greater job satisfaction. So at the same time, we also implemented some company-wide changes. Here's where things started to take place. We reduced the workforce from 40 to 37.5 hours at the same time as we were freezing salaries. So it really balanced that out, because if you calculate it, it's like getting a 5% raise. So it really did a lot, I think, to improve morale. We sponsored a company-wide retreat, and the management ran the Career Center while the staff was at the retreat. So all staff members went to this retreat to talk about these areas and focus on not only what was wrong, but also to propose solutions on how these areas can be addressed. So they were tasked with that, bringing that back to the management staff. And meanwhile, for the day, the management staff ran the Career Center. Luckily, it was only a half day, but it was a wonderful experience. It really was. We were in areas that some of us had never been in before. I worked at the front desk, and I'm not the type of person that can easily switch my task, my focus quickly like that. So it was really a learning experience for me, and I'm sure the other managers had similar experiences, but it was wonderful. And I got to meet new people and see what the front desk staff does, and really come to appreciate even more what it is that they do day to day. Then the staff discussed the concerns from the survey at the retreat. The suggestions for improvement were presented, and here come the changes based directly on their proposals, what they proposed to us. So literally, we sat in a room. We had the person who was had created the survey there, who ran the staff retreat, and we sat there and we listened. And that's pretty much all we did, I think, for a while. We just listened to their concerns, but also to their suggestions for improvement. It's a great experience. Again, a little tough at times, a little uncomfortable at times, but a necessary uncomfortable. And I'm glad we did it. Now, here we are today, snapshot of 2010, and the panel will talk all about how we got here. But here are some of the processes that were implemented as a result of that staff retreat day. And we'll leave this slide up as the panelists talk, and this way, if you have any questions about what's up here when they're all done, you can feel free to ask those questions. Any questions so far? Okay. The reason why we picked Connie, Beata, and Rosa is so that you can get a perspective across the board of people's feelings about this process. So Connie being our deputy director and the person who implemented all of this, or started this whole change, to Beata being a manager who has to supervise the individuals who are going through these changes, got feedback from them, and also had to manage these new initiatives. And then Rosa being a staff person directly impacted by the changes that are happening, having a direct impact on what these changes were, because they came from staff. So that's why we have these three women here today, so they can each share from their perspective what happened, where we are, and where we came from. Okay. Start with Rosa, I'm sorry. Rosa, what are some of the changes that you feel, first tell us, what was your top area of concern? Of those three that we chose to focus on, what was your top area of concern? Which one was most important to you?
Mine, I'm going to say, what was most important to me personally was I feel like we do an outstanding job at serving our customers. We made customer service the highest priority and to make them all feel very important. So for me, I like the idea of, as an employee, feeling that important to the company. So that was one of my personal top areas of concern. What surprised me the most from it was the trust one. When the numbers came back for staff feeling a lack of trust or the area of trust, I was surprised by that because that wasn't my personal experience, but it raised a flag for me of this is something we have to address. And I'm not sure how we address it, but at the same time, I did then question myself as far as, should I be as trustful as I am? Should I have a reason to be surprised about this? You know, it does make you wonder and then start to second guess and things going on if that's how other people are feeling. So trust probably was the most alarming one to me, or the one of concern that I thought for me personally. Yes.
Yeah, the same question. What surprised you? What area was of most concern to you?
I think for me, what surprised me the most was the respect and acknowledgement, because I felt, well, at least I thought that I was acknowledging staff to the best of my ability and respecting what they were doing, but apparently that's not how staff felt. And so that was very, very surprising to me. And then looking at myself and I guess kind of judging myself and saying, okay, well, what am I not doing that I need to do, to really acknowledge staff and get them to really respect the job that they're doing and also respect me in my position.
I guess for me it was enlightening because we've all worked for people, I think, that we said, well, I don't want to be that way as a manager if I ever have authority and responsibility. I want to be different, and I want to respect and have earn respect and have high levels of trust and work closely with staff, and then to come to find that even though that there was a difference in the survey in terms of how managers feel they were doing, overall high compared to what some of the staff were saying. I guess it was it really was enlightening, and I also, the other factor that was a great concern to me was that we are in the business of helping job seekers and individuals to develop their skills and develop their careers. And staff were giving us feedback that they didn't feel that we were supportive or providing vehicles by which they could develop their skills and move up the career ladder and achieve their goals. So that also was impactful in terms of the kind of action we took later on.
Any more questions to the end?
We can ask questions if anybody has anything, just as a small group.
What are some of the changes that you feel, tell us about some of the changes that you feel were most effective, and which area of concern those changes impacted. Start with Rosa.
After the retreat, we had a lot of areas that we wanted to see change, or not wanted to see changes in, that we had made suggestions around for improvements. And the first thing, one of the things that came up that was, I think, that we addressed quickly was, Connie and Pete always say, they always say we have an open door policy. But nobody was really utilizing the open door policy. And so I don't know why that is, because I'm pretty talkative, so I have no problem talking to everyone if I need to, but that was a general area. So then Connie started off a focus groups. And the focus groups were just with her, no managers, only staff. And it was confidential. Whatever you want to talk about was going to stay in that room, and no one was going to say so-and-so said this or whatever. That's what we started. I really liked those focus groups. And a lot of people showed up for the first group of them. And we talked about pretty much all the things that were spoken about during the retreat. And she listened. And Connie has great skills as far as counseling. And that was great because she listened, really acknowledged and validated what people were saying. And I think that just changed the tone right away, that what people are thinking they can talk about, and maybe they weren't, maybe after what was happening they didn't want to talk about it, I don't know. But from the focus groups, we started then making changes, and some of the changes that I liked the most, of course, communication was a big concern. We're in different buildings, we're not always together, but we're very close as a group. And so we started communication as a focus, and that's when we developed something called SharePoint. I got to work on SharePoint, which I really enjoy, and it's become a centralized place for communication occur with staff, and we've developed that really nicely. So that came right out of that. Some of the other things that we talked about was the suggestion process. The suggestion box is a physical box, and we changed that process where now not only that, but it's also on SharePoint. People can submit their suggestion electronically. It's confidential, no one can see who made that suggestion, but it has to be addressed by a manager within a period of time. And we've even revised it since then from the staff to say only suggestions, not complaints. We want suggestions with an solution, not someone just venting a complaint. And that was a staff decision from the committee that came out of that. I should say what came out of focus groups were task groups. And then the task groups were focused on these areas. And they were really decided by those conversations. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, the same question. What are some of the changes that you think were most effective?
Well, this really wasn't a change because we were doing it, and I think we just focused a little bit more on how we were doing the one-on-one meetings with staff and put some parameters around them. So the one-on-one meetings is something that, like I said, we were doing before. What we started to do, instead of doing it, we tried to do it monthly. It wasn't always feasible to do it as far as with management because obviously we know we had a lot to do. So what we decided to do was do it quarterly. But we put some parameters around it where the one-on-one meetings with staff was a meeting for them. It was their meeting. It was an opportunity for management to spend time with staff, but also staff to voice their, suggestions, their opinions to the manager that they report to, depending on, whatever it is they wanted to talk about. So it could be personal, it could be professional-wise, and there was also an opportunity that if there were any performance issues, the management could talk to the staff about it, as opposed to just, all of a sudden seeing it in their performance evaluation. It would be talked about. We would come up with some action plans as to how to assist that staff and give them whatever training it is that they needed to be more effective in their job. The other thing is, the action plans. I mentioned it a little bit. With our performance evaluation form, we incorporate what we call an action plan. And the action plan is really a way for staff to voice their opinion, I guess you can say, on paper, document on paper their goals and objectives for the year. And it's a working document. It's a document that is in progress. I have some staff who have completed everything on their action plan, and they're like, well, can I revise it and add some other things? And that's fine. But it's an opportunity for them to kind of, have some accountability of what it is they want to do and where they see themselves going in within the organization. And even outside, we have some staff who want to, continue their education and pursue a master's degree. Okay, put that on your action list. This is something that you can do. And we support them throughout that whole process. It's also a way, if the staff says, I'm interested in finding out more about business services, or I'm interested in finding out more about how things work at the front desk, okay? We can put down, we can set times and goals as to when they're going to be able to do that. looking at the work schedule, looking at the team as a whole, and give them opportunity to shadow other departments and get a feel for what other departments do. So in that way, they learn about the other departments at Rochester Works, what the responsibilities of those departments are, and then it gives the staff a feeling of, okay, I can move within the organization. These are some other things that I might want to do within the organization, and I think that has really been very successful.
And I just, to piggyback on that a little bit, we, in terms of this performance review process, this whole 2-year venture we've been in is all about improving the performance of our organization. So it's not just people feeling good and having fun and staff to get along with management. It has to do with rising everybody's performance in the organization. And one of the key impetus on this was the rescission of funds, increasing cuts, knowing that we have to do more with less. And this, parallels what's happening in the private sector. So, we have to have our employees be totally dedicated to the task, be enthusiastic, in effect be gung-ho along with management to get the job done. And another premise of this, it's important to understand, what makes this work, and that is when people have some input, when staff have some input into how the work is done. Indeed, the people that are doing the work know best how to get the job done and have the creative and innovative ideas of how it can be improved upon. So when they are contributing to making decisions on how the work is performed, with managers still, establishing key goals, understood that we have all shared values, which are guideposts to how the work is done, then we're gonna achieve a higher level of performance, and everybody's going to work harder and perform, and give customers the quality of service that they deserve. And I said this yesterday, and when we were talking in another workshop, it's about care. We're caring for our caregivers in our organization because our staff are caregivers. And this business is all about people, so we have to have our staff be healthy and feel good about what they do, or else that's not going to come down to the customer. And in terms of the performance review process, this is a key because we started out after the retreat and putting together committees. One committee was based on performance improvement, and that committee was charged with looking at our performance review process and making recommendations. And one of the things we heard is, when staff would have a review, even though there were some one-on-one meetings going on, especially at the Career Center level, that some of the feedback they were giving was a surprise. They didn't know that there was a problem with their performance. So it's really important to provide ongoing feedback to staff through these individualized one-on-one meetings, which also have to do with getting to know your people as human beings. Staff need to be recognized. It's not just all about the work. There's all kinds of things happening in people's lives, and if we're mentoring our staff and supporting them, we want to be able to do that, in terms of in a broader sense. So, one of the things that we did, and we got feedback from staff is, managers need some training. So we brought in a trainer, and we did some leadership training, which focused on coaching skills. All the managers went through individualized coaching, about 6 coaching sessions with a professional coach, in which they were coached on how to improve their performance, and which ultimately modeled the whole coaching experience. So in these one-to-one meetings, they could do this for their staff. The other thing is that staff, they had so much fun on the retreat, even though it was intensive and they were providing feedback and solutions and stuff like that. They said, geez, we want to be able to do this more frequently. And we know we can't close the Career Center to have retreats all the time. So what we decided, I thought there was no reason why, in addition to staff meetings and business kind of things, that we couldn't occasionally have what I call gung-ho events, which really translate into team building. So staff would come up, we would have a committee which would come up with an agenda and the activities for the day, typically bring in some lunch, and staff would have a great time, and it was really team building. So there was an actual result in terms of the work that was being done in terms of improvements. The other thing is, the staff meetings, we got feedback, we would have almost quarterly staff meetings, not all the time, but most of the time. And managers would get up and report on their departments and, how well we were progressing towards meeting our goals and outcomes. And staff said, well, we don't want to just hear all that stuff. We want to hear about other stuff. So now we have the staff help to set the agenda, and staff actually reporting on their department's progress, and actually the staff meetings are really focused on recognizing progress towards goals. So it's about everybody cheering each other on, and it's a very, very positive thing. That's enough. Yes, Phil?
I have a question for you. I know under your local one-stop, under your umbrella, you have Rochester Works staff, the Department of Labor, you have other partners. So is this universal to everybody that applies? And if so, are there certain barriers that you faced in dealing with that? Is there civil service type of things because they have their own, performance evaluation systems? They have their own rules and regulations regarding time to work and those kind of things. So how did you address that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, Phil, I just want to comment about the reduction of hours from 40 to 37 and a half. We were able to align with Department of Labor hours in terms of 37 and a half. So, that was a positive benefit. All of these activities, including quarterly Rochester Works staff meetings, are open to any co-located partners. And typically, all of our Department of Labor partners at our Career Center, and there's quite a few of them, I think now there's about 8 or 9, all of them almost always come to all of these activities if they're able. So I think we feel like one big happy family. I mean, in terms of the performance review process, obviously Department of Labor staff have their own process. So, and I don't know if you guys have one-to-one meetings with Department of Labor. Probably not like we do with our staff. So that is a little bit different, Bill. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Bob?
First of all, my compliments to leadership to kind of put it out there and ask the question, because sometimes you may not want to hear the answers, so my compliments to that. One thing I do have to ask though, as far as measuring the effectiveness for the last 2 years, has it impacted the ability for you to be able to pass and surpass your performance measures that are laid down by the feds or by the states that come down at our WIB meetings? You're always going through those. Have you found you're able to achieve those easier with a more happier and more effective staff?
Well, we passed all of our common measures, and I believe all but one of the indicators in the last 2 years. And despite the economy over the past year, I think we were really pleasantly surprised by our outcomes going up. So whether or not you can say that's a direct result of some of these activities, I think it's created a better work environment so that everybody is when these change, we have a lot of changes that take place every single year. We've got different pressures on us and different directions thrown at us every year, and it's all about staff and management being open to change and being flexible and being able to make those changes very quickly. And when you have staff who are happy and feel like they're involved, I think they're much more responsive in terms of making those adjustments. So,
I think I can comment on that too, Bill.
Peter is our executive director.
We talk about the outside, we talk about dealing with partners and collaborating, and we say, we're silos. Well, in my previous life, which was with the Department of Labor, we can see in some of those offices, some of those folks, staff, operated in their own silos. They really weren't aware of what was going on, but the person next, the next cubicle, what they actually did. I think, especially with the staff-driven meetings that we have, I think what this has done is everyone is keenly aware of what everyone else does. I think that equates to a better customer service, because if someone walks in and they're talking to someone at the front desk, they know, and they could probably give a little detail on what business services offers, or what training offers, even if they're not in that area. So I think that's helped an awful lot as far as, in effect, cross-training or understanding what the functions are and really make us functionally aligned.
It's facilitated the functional learning process, for sure, I think.
I also want to comment on that too, as far as when we work with great people. I love everyone I work with, and they're wonderful people, although we do very different things, but I've worked in different parts of the company, so that's kind of neat for me. But I've become very fond of the people I work with because I get to interact with them outside of, I don't really interact with a lot of my coworkers within my current job. I am interacting with businesses and other departments. So when we do these focus groups or gung-ho events, I get to see these people that I really like a lot. And then as we talk and get to know one another and I hear about some of their challenges at work, I want to help them. And so it's very easy for me to take time to go help one of my coworkers, and I don't know how to help them unless they communicate that. So I think the more we do this and the happier we are working together, because they really are wonderful people, it's only natural that we'll want to help one another reach our goals, because collectively they're all the same goals. But physically, I'm working on business services where I used to work in the Career Center, and really my day-to-day tasks were very different. So I don't know if that helps, but that's how I feel about the connecting with my coworkers and building the team building.
I think the focus groups and the task force helps a lot because when we have a situation or a scenario, we need to figure out how to implement it for our performance measures. It's not just the We of Career Center staff. We also incorporate the DOL staff and our vested staff that's there. And it's everybody's buy-in because we all have to serve the customers at one time or another. Okay, so everybody's feedback is welcome, and we talk about, we brainstorm. Okay, well, how can we really, work with the customers? What can we do to really meet our measures? And so it's not just, once again, just the WIA staff that are coming up with ideas, but it's the DOL staff, and it's our vested staff, and our veteran staff that's from the vet office that's there, and we're all coming up with ideas. And all of those ideas, are being looked at and hopefully implemented depending on what we're able to do or we're not able to do.
The task forces are really very, very powerful. And the way the task forces work, for example, when we have to review our training policies every year, management doesn't make that recommendation. We ask for volunteers to participate in a task force to review what's happened the past year with our training participation, expenditures, outcomes, and look at, based on our budget for the following fiscal year, what kind of policies do we need to put in place. And these are people that volunteer that are not just training team individuals. They're a combination of our partner staff, managers, front desk staff, and we've done this 2 years in a row. And what the task force does is they make a recommendation to management. And based on that, like Beata says, and I can't think of one instance where we have not implemented the recommendation of the task force. Another example of the task force is we wanted to, we were getting complaints from customers, even though I thought we had spent a fortune on our website, of changing our website to make it more customer friendly. We had a task force led by a volunteer employee that totally redesigned our website. If you look at our website now, that was designed by our employees. And that was very good. Right now, for another examples, we have an IT roundtable headed up by a new technology manager, Sean, who's here videotaping this presentation, and now we put presentations and videos on our website. And the IT roundtable is to get input from staff about what their needs are in terms of technology across the organization. So an example of something we recently implemented, people were complaining about there's too many emails. Here we're focused on more and more communication, so, sometimes we send out a lot of emails, we post things on SharePoint, but once we implemented instant messaging, so it really reduces the email volume and it allows for instant, for example, the front desk to communicate with the initial assessment team, or they get a line up at the front desk, I need somebody, and you guys need to get up here and take some of these customers. All the employee events, we have speed networking events annually. We have career conferences. These are employee-led volunteer groups that coordinate and organize these events. Another example of a task force we had was we wanted to get rid of all the customer satisfaction paper surveys, and so we wanted to implement something online on our website, and we had a task force led by an employee who designed an online survey, and we have that through Constant Contact. That's right on our website. And this employee was so proud of herself because she said afterwards, you know, I have a learning disability, and I can't believe I did this. And she felt so wonderful as a result. So the task forces are a great tool.
Elaborate on the speed networking unit?
Well,
upcoming?
Yeah.
The speed networking event, we have one that's coming up November 10th. It's November 10th. And it's basically teaching our job seekers how to network. So the event, and I'm trying to explain it to the best of my ability. It's easier going through it and explaining it. But the event is basically, we're going to have groups, various groups, and they're going to be separated in by occupation. And basically what's going to happen is we're going to have people kind of network with each other. There are going to be various questions, a number of questions that they're going to ask each other. There is going to be a moderator kind of moderating the whole thing and walking them through it. But they're basically going to ask each other a number of questions about their occupation, about what it is that they're looking for, the job skills that they have. And that's basically what networking is.
It's over 300 job seekers, and it's off-site at a venue. And it's totally structured.
And one of the reasons we have these speed networking events, whether they're in the Career Center or outside the Career Center, is that we know networking is one of the best ways to find your next job. You're going to meet someone who's working somewhere who you don't know that can help make that referral. But it's very scary for people to network. So this is a safe environment. It's a safe way to learn how to network, to test out your skills, to just see kind of feedback you get, because if you tell someone I'm an engineer and they think of a mechanical engineer and you're really a software engineer, you're not effectively networking. So this is an opportunity for them to learn, to practice in a safe environment, and to have a little coaching and practice. Practice makes permanent. So
And I think even with that, we broke that down into subcommittees, is that right?
Yes.
Like miniature task force is where if we want businesses to come, then business service or people from business service along with Career Center staff can kind of take that responsibility on. So while we're doing it globally, we're also doing it at every level really, because we do the same thing with each event we run anymore.
And I just want to comment about the task force too. What I like about some of what the task force allows is that it allows me to work in areas that I normally don't get to work in. So I love technology. So I get to play around with SharePoint and some of the areas that are not really what my job has to entail. So there's opportunities for me to do something that's interesting to me, that's intellectually stimulating for me, that's a little different than what I'm used to doing, and work with people that I enjoy to work with, but I don't necessarily get to work with them as much. So there's a lot of opportunities there to just be explored, and it allows some people maybe to say, I think I might like more of this in my job. How can I implement more of it into my job? Or are there other opportunities within the company to do some of this?
I like the idea about the retreats and about people coming to the job coaching. But where does the funding come from to cover these expenses when we're in such hard economic times?
There's literally no cost involved in any of this aside from the initial survey, which probably cost us, it was under $2,000.
So the job coaches that came in were...
That was out of our staff development budget. We have a budget line for professional development for staff, which includes coming to conferences like this, bringing in trainers for lunch and learns, which typically, we have 2-hour lunch and learns. Staff bring their own lunch. We don't pay for lunch. We've got professional trainers who love working with us, who've done volunteer work with our job seekers. We usually pay $200 to $300 for a lunch and learn for staff. So, there's, aside from in our quarterly staff meetings, we do bring in lunch that's when we do bring in lunch for the staff. But for all intents and purposes, there's not a lot of cost involved with any of this. It's hard work. I mean, you have to, what Bob said about, managers being it's a big risk for managers to do this. I'll tell you, we discussed this, doing a survey, finding out what our staff were feeling about us for years before we actually did it. And it is very threatening. I mean, you have to look at yourself as a manager and say, what can I do better? Because all of these things are about management staff, communication, and relationships. And the other thing that's really important, like Christina said, is once you get the feedback, you got to do something. And you got to do it, you got to decide what the priorities are, because you can't do everything all at once. And then you have to communicate the process and the outcomes continuously to staff so that they make sure that they know that you're responding to their needs. You can't assume that they know that. And this is a continuous process. It never ends, because things are always changing.
And I do think that when you do a retreat or that initial, where someone's going to communicate with staff, it's so important to get, like we already said, someone who has experience in that, because this can turn into a complaining session if they're not careful. So there has to be a really well-trained facilitator that knows how to guide the group towards, here's a problem we're going to talk about. Now we're going to stop talking about the problem. Now we're going to move on to solutions, and we're going to move on to some serious steps. And then coaching you to how to even present that to managers without becoming emotional or getting reacting to what you just said. So I think as observing it, I think that was very touchy, the whole thing. I really was impressed that we had the guts to do it. And I thought the facilitator did a very good job at guiding the conversation, because that's a major skill, and I would not want that.
Yeah, if any of you are in One Stops or Wins, Rita Carey did this for us. Rita Carey also does a series of workshops for us based on the 50-plus job seeker. She's been a director of a One Stop in Massachusetts, and now is in Rochester, has her own training or business, and she is absolutely phenomenal, and I highly recommend her. The other thing I wanted to say about the budget is that, we know we don't have a lot of money, so, and when we raised the issue when staff raised the issue that, we need to invest in our staff in terms of developing their skills, we looked at that and we said, how can we do this when we have limited funds? You can't when you send a person out to a workshop, it's going to cost a couple $100s. So that's one reason we've implemented, and we do that, we do that, but we can't do that for 50 people. So we've implemented these low-cost lunch and learns to really focus on improving communication, empowering staff. We've done MBT, the Mount Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, and team building exercises associated with it. It's low cost, and the lunch and learns are voluntary. Staff can come or go as they please, unless it's on a subject in which we're having a problem with a particular group, and then the manager can mandate that staff go to it. So it's that has helped to help with the professional development aspect, but we keep the cost low.
I throw one more thing out there with that. Now, the thing that doesn't cost really anything is you can couple it with, because you don't have to provide lunch, and we don't usually provide lunch for most of the lunch and learns, but and I'm part of the wellness committee. I love the wellness piece. So we have community salad bars, and everyone brings in something for the salad bar. And the actual lettuce with the greens are maybe $10. It doesn't cost much to provide the greens. Everyone, including DOL staff, and everyone's now famous for what they tend to bring from home. If someone has a good salad dressing mix, or someone else brings their own homemade croutons, but people bring different pieces to the salad bar, and we've been combining that with some of our meetings if we know we have a meeting. And that's, like, I would say, one of the most favorite things staff has talked about that they love is a community salad bar. It's healthy, and it doesn't cost anything. We do those on a regular basis. So many questions.
I just got one more on the state pen. A few years ago, Rochester Works, I think, had some of the best commercials I've ever heard over the radio, especially the one with the clock, now you choose and something that's some place to go. Are those going to come back?
That's when we had budgets for marketing. I can't tell you a lot. Now our budget for marketing is minimal. And, and it really, money spent on that, or we do quarterly e-newsletters to our customers, electronic e-newsletters. The money is used for outreach and special events, and so we don't do a lot of print or radio media advertising anymore. So I don't know if you have an answer to that, Pete. I mean, I think
Well,
we're serving over 25,000 customers. I don't know how many more we can possibly serve
I
every
think
year.
of what this must have brought in a lot of people, because if I lived in Rochester and heard that, you know, I'm in a different way, but if I had heard that and were looking for a position, it would definitely be a place that I would definitely get to, because the commercials were so, they were great. They were absolutely, you kind of bored listening to the next one that I don't know, they came out like every 6 months you did like a new one.
Yeah, we did a lot of radio too.
Yeah, that's where I heard them.
Yeah, that's where I
Radio.
know I was doing those radio spots. But the other thing about there's different theories about this, because I can't tell you how we go out and do presentations in the community, and people would still say they never heard of us. And how could you not hear about them? We're all over the place, you know. And I think that the reason for that is when people are unemployed and need your service, then they will be aware of that kind of information. When they don't, it's like it's out of sight, out of mind. And you know, we're a unique entity. You know, people know about the Department of Labor, that you know they offer unemployment benefits, but you know the WIVs and the one-stops are. You know, it's not a new product anymore. We've been around for 10 years, but it is different. So, I don't know, Pete.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, again, you know, budgetary, but if you'll see, is as I've said before, you know, we collaborate with an awful lot of organizations. But in the past, we've sort of been shy to say we're a sponsor, a co-sponsor, or whatever. And that sponsorship is not necessarily dollars. It's our efforts, what we put forth. So you'll see in many of the things, a program that was just completed had a lot of visibility from ABC, the weatherization program. We provided participants. So now the logo is on any of the brochures, things. So that's the way we're trying to promote a little bit that way. And I think going right to our partners, our community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, because as Connie said, you know, advertising is great, it's very expensive, but especially in these difficult times, you know, not everybody wakes up and says, well, I think I'll go see Rochester Works. You know, I think they're rather than go to the mall. But I think that we've done a good job as far as getting that visibility and getting that community awareness of what we are and what we're doing. But the dollars too. I want you to talk about the picnic tables. That's this.
But the other comment is that we've done a lot in the last year with the library. Like staff go in the evenings and do workshops in the community libraries as they're requested. And so people from the communities hear about us from that kind of thing. And we compensate our staff extra for doing that evening and Saturday work. But that is, again, that's the kind of stuff that Pete's talking about that we're doing. It doesn't cost us a lot. You know, putting up a thing in the DNC costs $1,000.
I want to piggyback on that. I'm with FLCC Finger Lakes Community College, so we're not the community college in Rochester Works territory. However, we have a training program that MCC doesn't provide that we do. And we just got done with a hugely successful class, and because of that, again, the partnerships and the collaborative effort, we've got folks from that Rochester Works is having call us directly about the training program, and likewise, when we get folks calling us about the training program that are in the territory, we're sending them a direct link to Rochester Works. So again, the partnerships, when we don't have the marketing dollars, are critical to success, and it's streamlined at this point. If they got folks calling looking for certain training, they're calling the training providers, of course, the other support services, and at this point, it's really a streamlined process.
And locally, you know, we try, and I think we do a relatively good job maintaining a positive relationship with the media, even though sometimes it's difficult. And Christina and her group and Connie have been very successful in having one of the local channels here. Is it CBS?
Channel 10.
Channel 10. And they've been a co-sponsor in our career conferences. Now, what better partner could you have than a TV channel who loves to put that public service message on, that event is there, that they're co-sponsoring it. So those are the types of things that we need to do and we try to do a little bit more.
And we have a job makeover.
Yeah, we did a job makeover series in the DNC where they come send a reporter in. We'd have a volunteer job seeker and a team of Rochester Works staff who would sit and talk to the job seeker, what are the key challenges, respond to them, and then they do a write-up in the DNC about all the recommendations we made for that person. But we did get picnic tables for the staff in the back, and we had to chain them down because we're in the inner city, and we have all kinds of people that pass by and want to sit at our picnic tables when they're supposed to be for our staff. And we have meetings out there at the picnic tables in the nice weather, and
I think the cutest story is the landlord takes care of placing them and chaining them down, things of this nature. And it was last year when fall came, the landlord decided to move them, and so staff came in and they were all panicking. We're on a picnic table. And the landlord had put them on the roof for the winter. But everybody was panicking. Where are our picnic tables going?
It's a big deal. It really is. It's nice to be able to get out and have a place to sit. And it was great that investment was made.
And we work with the public, so you really can't hide. If you're in the career center, someone needs you to help them, and it is caring for the caretaker to go sit back in the picnic table and chat, and just visit the lunch.
One thing I want to make sure, and it is on there, but I want to make sure we touch on it because it doesn't cost much of anything except for a lot of somebody's time, but it makes people feel so fantastic, and that's the personal recognition. And Connie, if you could speak to that for a couple minutes and let us know what that's about.
well, part of this whole philosophy of gung ho is, as I said, is acknowledging the wonderful work that our staff do on a daily basis, not just when we achieve outcomes and results. And so managers all have these little thank you notes we bought. And so when somebody does something special or goes above and beyond, managers are encouraged to write personalized notes to staff acknowledging their wonderful work. And I was also inspired because my husband is in the school system, and his principal sends him notes all the time, and they come home, and I open it, he opens it, I don't know, he opens it up, it looks like an invitation to a party or something, but it's always a note from his principal about something he's done. And I said, gosh, that's wonderful, comes to the house and stuff. So I thought, geez, I'm going to start this. So what I do is I send a personalized anniversary note to all staff to their home, and also birthday notes. And they go to their home, and it's really important to be very specific and not general in these acknowledgments, and it's to recognize something that someone has done, or a special contribution or gift that they offer to our team, and people and the staff seem to love it. And I always think I should do more. I should send one out every day, and I don't. But it's those little things are what make staff feel like we know them as managers, and we recognize their wonderful work, and it goes far above a paycheck. People don't come to work every day for the most part because of a paycheck.
Rosie, did you want to speak on that at all? How did you feel? The first time I got one, I was like, oh, I bet I'm the only one. I don't tell anybody. It's really special. But how did you feel when you received the first one?
Yeah, I was really touched. I know how busy Connie is. There's a lot of us there. I was really, really touched that she would take time out of her schedule to write a note to me, and it was really it was very specific. Which then meant, wow, she actually notices that I'm doing whatever it is that I was doing. So it's always very specific. She does it for the holidays too. It's very cool. I look forward to them. No pressure, Connie.
But you home. She
Yeah.
doesn't like put them on your desk here.
Well, for the holidays, she usually has one on her desk.
Yeah, I put that on your desk. Of all the
Birthdays
others.
and anniversaries.
Home.
And for me, I've always worked kind of for myself. I've never worked with a nonprofit. So I've been my third anniversary. I was kind of proud of myself for making it 3 years. Like, I love the company, but I didn't know when I started working how I would feel about working at a nonprofit. And I'm like, I love this place. This is really cool. So my third year anniversary, my husband would tease me like, wow, you made it 3 years, good for you. And I'm like, oh, I love it. And then I came home and there's a note from Connie that she even noticed I'd been there for 3 years. It was kind of neat. I have to say though, I worked for Beyond, I've been around, worked for Christina, and they all do things in their way. They're different, but they all acknowledge people in their way, and I really appreciate that too. Because Beata was always very supportive to me when I've gone through some challenges with my father-in-law was terminally ill, and she took time to make sure, just to check in with me, see how he's doing, giving me a little flexibility to go visit him in hospice so that I can spend some time with him, and that meant the world to me. And Christina's the same way, very passionate, and always wants to know how things are going. When my mom was in surgery, she text messaged me to say, how's Mama doing? And those things mean a lot. You know, that's the kind of reason, that's exactly the reason I love working at Rochester Works. Someone can say, I've got this job for you over at corporate, and you'd love it, it's more money. It's not why I'm here. I'm here because I really feel like what I do makes a difference, and I love the people that I work with.
The other thing is, I think, and I have to say, I'm very proud of the staff at Rochester Works. I really am. They're just a great crew to have. But when we have an event, when Christina has a career conference, or when we have a specialized recruitment, or we have an event that we really don't have staff to manage, we go out and ask for volunteers, and we ask for, we're going to have a career conference. It's going to be a little different. It's going to take away from your daily work. You're probably going to have to catch up when you get back to the office. And can you help us? And I don't think we've ever had an issue with any event where we needed additional staff that they aren't there, and that they're all willing. Because they all know each other, and they know what each other does, and they know the benefit of, how business services, how that relates to what's going on in the front line, and how it helps the job seeker, and that whole correlation, which I think is great. So I think that's helped us immensely.
In the Career Center, one of the things that we've done is allowing staff to recognize their peers. So if you see someone did something great for you, you can recognize that person, and tell at a staff meeting, basically let everybody know what that person did for you and how you really appreciate that individual. So that is something that we have done in the Career Center, and I think that works well because it's not just management recognizing staff, but as peers, we're recognizing each other and we really appreciate the work that we do for each other.
I just want to quote a recent survey, I just read that, where thousands of workers were surveyed, and what the results of it were, only 38% of employees think that their leaders have a sincere interest in their well-being. Just 47% think their leaders are trustworthy. Only 42% think their leaders inspire and engage them. Only 53% think their managers have time for their employees. And only 61% question how well managers deal with poor performers. So it's pretty much across the board, I think, these concerns.
Any questions right now? One of the things that we also did not touch on that I wanted to make sure we mentioned is the peer mentoring program. Does anyone in particular care to talk a little bit about that?
Well, that came out of the Committee for Performance Enhancement, and staff really wanted to develop an interim mentoring program. So, and it's not like you can just set out, okay, anybody can go to talk to anybody and work on, on their stuff. You really have to have a structure in place. You have to have a way to monitor how well the process is working and evaluate it. And actually we had training. We had a lunch and learn to train individuals who wish to be mentored on how to do that. We set up a short application process. There was a small group of employees who reviewed the applications for people who wanted mentors. So if you wanted to mentor, or if you wanted to be a mentee, you have to fill out a little application. And then there was a matching process by this group based on what individuals' needs are and the skills and the background of the mentors. And then individuals, and then after those matches were made, meetings would occur. There would be also progress meetings with a group of mentors and mentees to determine what the challenges were. And and then this is a continuous program, so anyone at any point can choose to participate.
It's very rewarding. I'm a mentor, and I look forward. It's a highlight to work with someone, and really you can talk about, everyone has a different focus, so whatever is important to them, whether it's their career path or whether it's something, their personal development, whatever it might be. wonderful that the company encourages it, because at first I thought, I was supposed to be doing this during the workday, and it's not been, certainly not abused in any way. It's something that everyone is supportive of, and so we just carve out a little time and meet, and it's great to see the steps that people make, because you've listened and given them a little encouragement.
I agree. You don't have to be an expert either. You just have to know how to listen, I think. And you're right. At first it felt funny. It's like, well, we're talking about this, and it's nothing to do with work, and it's on work time. But it's really 1 hour every 2 weeks that we spend together. And if you don't know that this person is working with a mentor, and you can still see their progress. Am I right? So, like this person who is relatively quiet and kind of kept to themselves, saying, I want to be more well-known. We have more to do with the organization. Next thing you know, this person is presenting at a staff meeting, or writing an article and posting it on SharePoint, or creating a blog. And a lot of that came from the time that he was spending with his mentor and brainstorming. So it definitely makes a difference.
With the person that I was working with, she wasn't sure what her next career step was, and she always wanted to get her master's degree, but wasn't sure what it would be in. So I helped her connect with some people in different organizations, and she did some informational interviewing. She decided to take a course, a graduate level course at SUNY Brockport. She did very well, but she decided that wasn't the program she wanted, and now she's looking at other programs. So I think it was a worthwhile experience for her.
Just about 10 minutes. Anything else? Any other questions that anybody has?
Yeah,
Yes.
good morning. I just wanted to thank you all very much. It is very cool, Gung Ho. I just wanted to comment on what you're doing. I think it's very, very important in terms of organizations. And so, for example, if you take a look at the Time Warner AOL merger that collapsed, quite frankly. And everyone here, you have these two great organizations, Time Warner, but why did it collapse? What happened along the way? And I think it was the organization, it wasn't a perfect fit, there was a lot of miscommunication going on. I mean, it's absolutely real in terms of that, and that's a huge example. The other two examples are, you take a look at Chrysler back in the 80s, when Lee Iacocca took it over and sort of had to remake Chrysler. It wasn't just that Chrysler wasn't producing cars that anybody wanted. It was a complete culture at Chrysler. And I think incorporated, if you take a look at some of these things that are produced, take a look at some of the things that you'll cite here on certainly on a larger scale, I think certainly that was some of the things that certainly brought it back. Jack Welch is another one over at GE. It's just at the end of the day, it's people. I don't care how big your product is, if the organization isn't running on all cylinders, if it isn't moving, you're going to have a problem at somewhere down the line. So I think you're absolutely right.
And it doesn't matter if it's a manufacturing site, or it's a healthcare, or business services, or nonprofit. And that's what the Gung Ho story was all about. A woman who was brought into this manufacturing facility that was going to close in 6 months if they didn't dramatically improve their results and make it productive in 6 months. And what she did was she drove decision making from the ground up, have people decide how they were going to perform the work, and she was able to turn around that manufacturing site in six months. The other thing that we have for you is an article from the Wall Street Journal about the changing management. And it talks about how, in the Industrial Revolution, where large companies like the automobile industries were thousands of individuals, and the only way to handle it was to, bureaucratic top-down decision-making. Now we've got very different changes in the economy. Much of the job creation and growth is in small entrepreneurial companies, where everybody has to be invested in doing the work and being flexible and making decisions. And that's true of also the larger manufacturers as well. So, it requires different skill sets on the part of managers and employees.
As Connie said, we do have the article for you right in the back of the room if you wanted to grab one on the way out, and you could just advance the slides on that. We have some additional resources. If you wanted to read more directly on Connie Blanchard and the Gung Ho, on your disc that you get, you should be able to link right out. And then the second website is more talks about it, an organization that used it and the positive impact it had on their organization. I think we're just about out of time, but any other questions?